Well, it's officially September. That means the leaves are changing, the weather is getting cooler, and the kids are back in school. I'm going to show you how to make a butternut squash soup so you have something to enjoy during all of these changes. I have my oven set to 350 degrees, and I have 4 pounds of butternut squash that I've cubed up into about 1-inch squares. We're going to take our squash and put it on a sheet pan. I have 2 onions that I've sliced, and we're going to add those to the squash. I've taken 4 carrots and I've sliced them, and then I've just diced them up. We're going to add those to the squash and the onions. We're going to spread it around as evenly as we can because we're going to throw this in the oven and roast it until they're really soft. Okay, now we're going to take some olive oil and we're just going to drizzle it over the top, and then we're going to sprinkle on some salt and some pepper and mix it up really good. Now that we've got this all mixed up, I'll just stick it in for 40 minutes or until it's soft. Now that these have just come out of the oven, we're going to put them in a large stock pot, and then we're going to add 10 cups of chicken broth and 1 teaspoon of salt. We've let our soup simmer for 10 minutes. Now we're transferring it over to our blender so we can blend it all up. Look how hot it is. Be careful. We'll just keep doing this until all of the soup is done. I love making this soup in the fall. Don't you just love the fall season, how the leaves are changing, the weather's cooling down, the cold, crisp air? Can't you just smell those jack-o'-lanterns burning? But most of all, the fall brings change. And as a child, I didn't always grasp that change was a good thing, but now as an adult, I'm learning that it's okay to take change and roll with it. Now we're taking our soup and we're gonna put it back into our pot without spilling. Now we're taking 1 cup of heavy whipping cream and we're gonna add that to the soup. Then once that all gets mixed together, we'll add some salt and pepper to taste. Now we're gonna dish up our soup and put it in a bowl. Then we're gonna top it off with some sour cream and some crisp bacon, because who doesn't love bacon? It's delicious, perfect soup for the fall. Speaking of fall, it brings on many changes, right? So let's change up this soup, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways to make a butternut squash soup. With fall comes apples, apple cider, apple crisp. So let's make a butternut squash apple soup. To start out, I have 1 onion that I've sliced up. We're going to put a little bit of olive oil into our pan. Then we'll add the onions to our pan, and we'll cook this on a medium-low heat for about 15 to 20 minutes. While our onions are cooking, we're going to prepare our squash and cut our apples. I'm using 3 different kinds of apples just to give a little bit more tartness and a little bit more sweetness. I'm using a Red Delicious, a Granny Smith, and a Gala apple. Now that our onions are soft, we're going to add our cut up squash and our apples and 2 cups of chicken stock. Now we're going to cover this and let it simmer for 15 to 30 minutes. While our soup is cooking, let's go ahead and make some croutons to go on top as the garnish. So I have 3 cups of cubed bread. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil on top, and we're going to add about a tablespoon of fresh sage, and then just a little bit of salt. Then we'll stir that. We'll throw it on our sheet pan, and then we'll toss it in the oven for about 10 to 12 minutes. And we're gonna stir it halfway through. Our croutons are done. We're going to put them in a bowl and sprinkle them with Parmesan cheese and set them aside until our soup is done. We've let our soup cook for about 15 to 30 minutes. If you wanna come over here and look, you can see that if you push in with a fork, it's tender enough that it just breaks right through. That's how you know it's done. To our soup, now we're adding 1 cup of chicken stock. Then we're gonna throw it in the blender and blend it up. Now that we have our soup all done, we are going to add some salt, pepper, and nutmeg. My husband and I are huge fans of Thai food. I'm going to show you how to make a Thai-inspired butternut squash soup. For those of you who have never cut up a squash, I'm going to show you how. So the first thing I've done is I've taken a wet paper towel and I put it on my counter. Then I'm taking my cutting board and putting it on top just so that my cutting board doesn't move for safety. Then we're going to take our butternut squash. I'm going to cut off the top. And then I turn the squash and I stick my knife right in about the center and I stick it down and then I just push it all the way through until it goes all the way through. Then I take my knife, turn the squash right side up, take my knife and push it right back through, and then just get the last little part. Now we take a spoon and we're just gonna come in here and scoop out all of the seeds. Now if you want, you can roast up these seeds and use them as a garnish in your soup, or you can just eat them. But for this purpose, we're just gonna discard of them. Once you have all of the seeds cut out, what I like to do is I take my vegetable peeler and then I just come in and I go down on the side and you can just peel off the skin. Now we have all of our skin taken off. I'm going to put it flat side down, take my knife, and we're just gonna cut it into about 1-inch sections. Now we're going to take the squash, turn it on its side, and cut it again in 1-inch cubes. This soup recipe is actually cooked in our crock pot, and I love to use these Reynolds Kitchen slow cooker liners because it makes it less cleanup when it's all done. Who doesn't love less cleanup in the kitchen? So I just take it and I open it and just stick it right in the crock pot. And then we're good to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to add our squash. We're going to add 2 cups of chicken broth, 1 sliced onion. We're going to add 1 can of coconut milk. We'll add a tablespoon of brown sugar, as well as a tablespoon of fish sauce. If you don't have fish sauce or you don't like fish sauce, you can substitute it for soy sauce. To give it a little bit of a kick, we're going to add my husband's favorite hot sauce, which is sriracha. But if you don't like things spicy, just don't put it in. But we're going to add about a teaspoon of sriracha. Now we'll stir this all up. We're going to put the lid on it and cook it on low for 4 to 5 hours, or you can do it on high for 2.5 to 3 hours. We've let our soup cook for 4 hours in the crock pot, so once again, we're going to throw it in the blender. Smells delicious. So we'll pour it into this bowl, then we're going to add a little bit of lime juice, and then I'll show you how to make the Thai gremolata for the garnish that goes on top. For our garnish for the Thai soup, we're going to make what's called a gremolata. It includes having the peanuts and some lime zest and some herbs. You can either use cilantro or basil. I love to have a basil plant sitting in my window, so today we're going to use basil. So we'll pick off a couple more leaves of our basil plant. Then what we do is we're going to stack them on top of each other. Then we're going to roll it up and we're going to chop it on an angle, and this is called chiffonade. And that gives us these ribbons of basil. So to our 1/2 cup of peanuts, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of lime zest and then our chopped up basil. And we'll use this for the garnish. Change is hard. Sometimes it blows and it just isn't very fun. But just like these soups, if we take a different road or we try something new, we can come out with a delicious outcome. Leave me a comment below telling me what is something that's been hard for you, something that you've changed or had to adapt to. Thank you to those who have subscribed, and if you haven't yet subscribed, hit the button and the bell so you can follow along with us as we strengthen our family through food.